We'll get started.
I just started the meeting.
Okay, let me know when we're live.
We are ready to go.
Great, thank you. Good evening, and welcome to the Finance and Claims Committee meeting of the Common Council for today, Thursday, August 8th at 7:02 p.m. We'll start with the roll call of Finance Committee members. We have Council Member Jim Freya.
Here.
Who's present? Thank you. Councilmember Johan Lopez.
Present.
Thank you. And Councilmember Heather Dunn.
Here.
Thank you. And myself, Greg Burnett. So we have a quorum for tonight's meeting. Moving on to item 3 in the agenda, which is public participation. We did not receive any emails prior to the meeting. If there's anyone who wishes to speak, let's see, we have one attendee and I see their hand is raised.
I will promote this attendee to ask
Okay.
questions.
Okay. I believe that's is that Diane Loricella? Yes. So Diane, welcome. You have 3 minutes for your public comment.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. For the record, my name is Diane Loricella. Hello to the fellow council people and staff on this call, on this Zoom meeting. Tonight, I looked over a part of your finance and claims agenda, and tonight you'll be making some important decisions about various ARPA money proposals or projects. First, I wanted to ask you, Mr. Chair, after this meeting, where could I get a list of each of the ARPA projects that have been approved in the past, and then, of course, include the ones that are approved tonight? Because the ARPA money was a wonderful idea. It has great intent, and there are many good projects on this list tonight. But it is not, funny money. And what I don't see on this list yet, and I do not know how much money is left, and I think that this committee needs to know that, is I don't really see any direct COVID relief projects, such as something that could have been utilized this summer, especially after the president declared that we were over the pandemic as an emergency, and that is the supply of KN95 masks for free and free test kits, which can run up to $30 a test kit at a time when COVID, if many of you have read, is still a thing, and it will only become more of a thing as we get closer to the colder weather. But in the hot weather, people go indoors to escape the weather, and we have had a little bit of a COVID upgrade. So I don't see enough on this list, and I'd like to know why not. I will say the Butler Street, number 10 on your list, the Butler Street, I wanted to know, why was this not purchased under eminent domain, and is 1.3 million or whatever the amount was for less than, I think, half an acre. Is this while I know it's a great location, and I read the discussion about it, but I wanted to know, are we buying it at this amount because it had already received approval for a construction permit? And we keep doing this. We did this with the library in the back lot, and we should learn from our mistakes. The number 11, the arts and cultural plan, I do think I would rather see us looking at air pollution and water quality plans instead of an arts and cultural plan as being more important in and embracing the use of the COVID monies. After what I think is a real misuse of public funds that you'll be hearing about soon, about the mural on West Avenue, I think that the arts and cultural plan, which could be helpful, needs to embrace why we're not using local and regional artists instead being charmed by international artists from far afield that cost us more money. Then lastly, I just wanted to say on items 13 and 15 and 16, are these needs versus wants? I think the need for a network switch, as long as the city website will begin to be more user-friendly, that is great. That's good use of money. I don't understand what the number 15, schools and other educational facilities. I would like to know where I could see a list of what is being proposed. And lastly, on number 16, for vehicles and dog park, are these wants or are they needs? Are we handling our needs? And what about masks for free and test kits? Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments. Do we have anyone else from the public that wishes to speak during public participation? Okay, hearing and seeing none, we'll close public participation at this time. And we'll move on to item 4 on the agenda, which is approval of the minutes from the Finance and Claims Committee meetings. We have 2 sets of meetings, one for June 17th, 2024, Special Finance and Claims Committee meeting. Do we have any additional deletions or changes to those minutes? I have just a couple. One, under the narrative for the tax collector for the June 17th meeting, the sentence where it indicates they are currently up to 4.2 million, we just simply need to add the $ there. And then the next sentence where it says the deadline is Friday, the 14th of June, that should indicate the deadline to pay to avoid notice of sale being filed was the 14th of June. Those are the proposed changes that I have. Do we have any other changes from any Finance Committee members? Okay, hearing and seeing none, do we have a motion to accept the minutes from the June 17th meeting with the suggested changes? Councilmember Jim Freya, thank you. With that, are you ready for the question? All those in favor show a sign of raising your hand or aye. All those opposed have the same right. Any abstentions?
Chair, I think I abstained because I think I wasn't present for that meeting.
That is correct. So we have 3. Right. We have 3 approved and 1 abstention. So the minutes are approved. Moving on to the next set of minutes, which was the July 11th, 2024 regular Finance and Claims Committee meeting. I had 1 correction that I came across, well, 2 corrections. One, under the tax assessor's report, the first sentence indicates, explain that the main thrust, that word is just a minor typo. The thrust should be changed to thrust with a T. And then also under that same heading where it indicates the initial September 9th tax sale notice was published in the paper on July 8th. That should indicate it should be July 6th. Those are the changes that I have. Are there any other proposed changes to the minutes from the July 11th meeting? Okay, hearing and seeing none, do we have a motion to accept the July 11th meeting with the suggested changes? Councilmember Jim Freya, thank you. I'll call ready for the question. All those in favor show by a sign of aye. Raise your hand or verbal. Okay, we have 3 in favor. Any opposed? And any abstentions? We have 1 abstention. Heather Dunn, thank you. So the minutes are approved with the necessary corrections. Great. Moving on the agenda, item 5, the tax assessor report. We have Paul Gorman, our tax assessor, to bring us a update that specifically on the senior tax relief program. So over to you, Paul.
Good evening, everybody. Hope everybody's having a nice summer. And if everybody's had a chance to review the little spreadsheet that we sent out, just to recap it, we had total participation of 1,100 people on the local program, 675 people on the state program. So that brings us to 1,775 between the two programs. We have 425 people that are only on the upper tier of the town program, which is the $900 relief level. We did see reductions in each category of participants, which is not necessarily unusual. People move, and unfortunately, other reasons people fall off the program is people pass away or sell their homes. You also just have sometimes there are people that fall off the program because A, they forget to apply, or B, their income changes for a year or two, and therefore they're no longer financially qualified for a couple of years, and they have to come back during the next cycle. And as you can see, this is very much similar to the spreadsheet that I gave you guys last year that showed a 4-year comparison. This is just comparing 21 to 23 because this is a 2-year program. So the best way to compare it is compare it to the grouping of people that should be reapplying in the 2-year period. We do have people every once in a while that do apply every year because their incomes tend to fluctuate at times, and they are allowed to reapply if their income goes down, because they're also required to come in on their off year if their income goes up. So, but for the most part, it's a 2-year program, and 2-year comparisons is what we need to do. I'll open the floor to questions about the stats that are up there.
Do we have any questions related to the senior tax relief program? I guess my question is, what has the reception been? And you know, we've done a lot in terms of getting the word out and encouraging those to apply. What are some of the comments that you've received in your office related to the program?
I think it's received positively, and the communications were received positively. The message still we need to continue to do this on a yearly basis. Lisa's been great about making sure that there's inserts in the bills to keep bringing attention to the program. It's a very healthy program. It's one of the more well-funded ones that I've worked with in the years that I've been assessing. We did have, I would say, quite a few people that had to apply for extensions to OPM this year for medical reasons, more than I remember seeing last year. So these numbers of seeing people that have fell off, like just not remembering it. Like you see, there's 99 people that fell off the local, 91 that fell off the state. Those numbers may change in the next month or two because they actually have another week until they can continue to apply for extensions from the state. So most likely through October, we'll be making adjustments. But overall, I think it's been very positive with the people, and they're very thankful for the fact that we're willing to work with them when they miss deadlines, get their paperwork submitted to OPM with them. So just overall, yeah, I think it's been fairly positive. I haven't heard anything. No one's slamming the city for not offering more, because when people do say, oh, they should give more, I do kind of explain what I've experienced in other towns, what those towns' levels of help are, and that Norwalk's is above the places. And I mean, there are some places that don't have local programs. The fact that we offer up to $1,500 off on a local program is pretty rich.
Great, thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Do you have any other comments or questions related to the senior tax relief program?
Or if anybody has just an assessor question while I'm here.
I guess on that topic, are we still conducting appeals, or how is that progressing?
No, appeals are done.
Okay.
The appeals were completed back in May. Um, Still having people wanting to appeal. I actually had somebody come in today who wanted to appeal his assessment because he completely ignored the notice that came out in December. But we're done with that, and everybody's been that does question it. We put them forth to wait for the Board of Assessment Appeals for next year. I do offer the opportunity to people that if they want to email me their evidence ahead of time, I'll take a look at it as time permits. And if I believe that they are being overassessed based on the information that they've given me, I'll reduce them for the 2024 grand list as the state statutes allow me to do. I can't go backwards for them, but neither can the Board of Assessment Appeals. So I do what the Board of Assessment Appeals might do in March, but I do it ahead of time to cut down on the traffic.
Great. Okay, if there's no other questions, thank you for that update. And as you indicated, we appreciate that we have the senior tax relief program offered in Norwalk, and it's our intent to keep it going each and every year. So thank you for the update.
You're welcome. And just to finish, if anybody has any kind of a topic or something that they would like me to cover for next month, please feel free to email me with questions, and I'll make sure that I'm prepared for them.
Great, thank you.
Have a good night.
Moving on in the agenda, items 6, 7, and 8 is under the tax collector's office. We have our claims committee report. This month we have no claims to report, so there's no August report or information to report on. So we have the narrative on tax collection and the monthly tax collector report. So over to Lisa B. for the update.
Good evening.
Good evening.
The spreadsheets for the month of July, as in the past, we have two because we're juggling 2 fiscal years. Our external auditors like to observe our collections for basically a 14-month period. So the months of July and August 2024, we're going to still give you a report on what was basically the grand list of 2022. So starting with that spreadsheet, which we have it titled additional 60-day collections. We're 30 days into that 60 days. August will be the end. It's actually 62 days. We are at 98.77% of that adjusted levy, which is not as good as we've been in the past, but it's not bad either. It's actually better than last year. Moving to I would say the next report, which is for the current fiscal year, we had our collection period that ended August 1st. The month of July on the current collection, which is the 2023 grant list, I'm not going to say it's absolutely meaningless because it's not, but it doesn't fully capture the collection because of August 1st. So as of the end of August 24, we'll have a better handle on where we are with our current collections. That being said, we did better this year than we did last year, again, because we got our bills out earlier this year than we did last year. So with the current collection on the new grant list, we were at 46.96, almost 47% through the months of June and July, which is ahead of last year. The collection went very well. There were no major issues, particularly because we had the phase-in. We did that insert, which I think really helped. I mentioned that last month. There were not a lot of issues or questions or problems. And it was a relatively uneventful collection, which is a good thing. My narrative is kind of long this month because we have the 2 years that I'm reporting on, but also because of the tax sale, which is what I will talk about next. And then I'd be glad to take your questions. But we started working on the sale in November of last year. It was originally scheduled for July and then we moved it to September. It is basically about 4.5 weeks from now. As of today, we had hit the $5.4 million mark on collections. We're down to 54 properties. The report I gave you said 55. We're down to 54. We'll probably be down to between 15 to 25 on the day of the sale because 90% usually pay prior to the sale. Everything is going well. We've already published our legal notices. There are boards in the City Hall lobby, and we have a website that I put in the narrative. I would encourage committee members and council members to look at that website and see some of what is involved with the sale. All of our notices are posted there. There's a map. It's a little bit of an interactive website. It was given to me by the IT department, but I entered all that information myself. I think we are probably the only municipality in Connecticut that does a site like that for their tax sales. The reason why we do all of this publicity for the sale is basically twofold. The most important reason is to try to reach taxpayers who owe back taxes, property owners, those who have an interest in these properties. They stand to lose their property interest if we tax sale their property. And in some situations, the owners will not sign for their certified mail. In some cases, they live out of state or we don't have a valid address for them. And we are trying to notify them. We're trying to reach them. And those boards work for that purpose. People walk in, they know somebody whose property is there, they will find a way to reach them. And it's very important that tax collectors do that because there have been challenges that have gone all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court from taxpayers who've lost their properties to a tax sale in other states. And I'm very cognizant of the fact that taking someone's property is a very serious matter. And anything that we can do above and beyond what the statutes require us to do to try to reach people and give notice, that's what we're doing. It's not meant to embarrass anybody. It is not, the purpose of the sale is not necessarily to transfer ownership of property or give people an opportunity to purchase property. It's to collect taxes. So we sometimes get criticized by our public coming in who says, I was interested in a property and you took it off the list. I said, yes, because our purpose was achieved. The taxpayer paid. That's the point of the sale. And we sometimes have to remind that that is the point of the sale, is to collect tax revenue for the city of Norwalk. But it says that on the site. We have it written up, I think, pretty well. And I'm happy to answer any questions that anybody has about that. We'll have probably one more meeting, I think, before the sale. The sale is the 9th. So I don't know if I'm going to see you again before that sale or not. I don't have my calendar in front of me, but if there's questions in the meantime between now and then, we really appreciate also the support that we get from the administration and the council and others in the building relative to the sale, because we wouldn't be able to be consistent and do this without everybody being on board. So I appreciate that very much.
Thank you, Lisa, for that update. Our next finance meeting in September will be the 12th. So we'll look forward for you giving an update on the tax sale that will take place on the 9th. Council Member Johan Lopez.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Lisa. Lisa, I have a quick question. So despite the collection rate of 98.7, which I think is indicative of, efficient tax administration and compliance, I do see a challenging situation with past due tax collections. So obviously, is there anything especially because of legal complexities of dealing with past taxes that are due from the past. Is there anything that can be done in the future to try to kind of absorb some of the legal complexities, whether it's more auditing to kind of anticipate any sort of discrepancies that might lead to tax appeals? Is there anything that can be done in the future to kind of avoid this sort of thing? So to kind of lessen the impact on revenue.
I'm not sure I understand the question because the tax appeals have to do with the assessor. The delinquent enforcement has to do with a bill that that I'm collecting. I don't have any properties in my sale that are under appeal that are paying their statutory percentage because they're allowed under state law to not pay their whole bill. And depending on the dollar value of the bill, if it's more than, or the assessment rather, if it's more than a certain amount, they're required to pay 90% of their bill and leave 10% out. If it's under that threshold, they're required to pay 75% and leave 25% out. We're not allowed to tax sale that remaining percent. We have to wait for the court system to adjudicate their claim. But the tax appeals, I think that's maybe like a Paul question. But in terms of delinquent enforcement, we're doing everything we can do because real estate is the biggest percentage of our levy, and we do a tax sale every 2 to 3 years. So by example, there are other towns, there are other municipalities that don't do this, that have properties that go back 8, 9, 10, 12, up to 15 years back taxes. In Norwalk, you can see from our website, there's one property that goes back 6 years. That's the only one that even goes back that far, and that's because the taxpayer was in bankruptcy at the last sale, and I couldn't do the sale on their property. But it's usually 2 to 3 years, and that's it. So we don't allow it to get really delinquent, which also works to the property owner's advantage because they're paying 18% interest on that bill. And if you let it go 5 years, the interest gets to be even more than the tax. So we pursue it quickly and efficiently in order to not have it become an unsurmountable obstacle for the taxpayer. And also, we do the work in-house. There are other towns that do the sales and they don't want to do the work in-house, so they hire an attorney. That attorney charges fees to the taxpayer who is already having difficulty meeting their obligation. We don't do that. We recover our legal notices and our expenses so that the on-time taxpayers are not bearing the burden, but that's all we charge. So we're saving them literally thousands of dollars per property because we're doing the work in-house. I hope that helps answer a little bit.
Yes, that makes, yes. I mean, it's a question for Paul, but thank you. That does help clarify. So I appreciate it. Thank you, Lisa.
Of course.
Great. Any other questions? Well, I do. Lisa, we are 0.23 away from 99%. How do you feel about that? You think we're going to get there? Fingers crossed, toes crossed.
Fingers crossed.
Okay.
I'm not a gambler, so I can't say.
Okay.
Maybe Jared can venture a guess, but I don't know.
I will not.
Ah.
I'm not gonna venture a guess on that.
Okay. Well, we'll see how it turns out, but still 98.77 is great. We thank you and your team for continuing to drive that. So anything over 98% is fantastic. So this is great.
Our budgeted goals. We did meet our budgeted goals because they budget us at 98.3, I believe, or 98.4. So we surpassed that, which I think is probably important to note as well. So the money is coming in.
That's key, right? Yeah. That we passed our budgeted amount. So anything above that is just outstanding work. So great. Okay, and the tax sale again is September 9th. And we hope that as you mentioned, that the 54 properties get down to a single-digit number, if not all completed. But we'll handle it appropriately when we get to the 9.
Yes.
Great. Okay. Thank you for that update, and we'll be there to support you on the 9th for the tax sale.
We appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you.
Have a good
Okay,
evening,
moving.
folks.
All right. Have a good evening. Moving on to the next item on the agenda, which is item 9, the Oak Hills Park Authority monthly update. We will table that update to the September meeting. So we're moving on to item 10 and on the agenda. And let me just preempt that by stating the next several items on the agenda, item 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15. I might also mention 16. All of those items fall under the heading of our ARPA dollars. The amount of ARPA funding that we have received since the first distribution of $39.3 million, and then recently an additional $5 million in ARPA grants. So before we move into, and let me just state 2 things. One, we will have a formal presentation related to all of our ARPA dollars from our CFO, Jared Smith. And but before we go into that presentation, we have one update to item 16, which is an addition to item 16. So in order to make that happen, we need to add that to item 16 as an agenda item. So I'd like to bring forward a motion under item 16 to add under the ARPA transfers AEC 15, which is described as a permit coordinator for the amount of $155,000. And then we will be showing under the transfer the addition AEC 04 project manager position for that same amount. So that is the motion that I'd like to bring forward. Do we have someone to move that motion to add that item? Councilmember Johan Lopez, thank you. Are there any questions on that item? Okay, seeing none, I'll call for the question. All those in favor show by the sign of aye, either verbally or raise of hand. Let's see, 1, 2, 3 in favor. Okay, all those opposed have the same right. And any abstentions? Okay, Councilman Jim Frey, I didn't see your vote. Jim, can you hear me? You're muted. Okay, is that in favor? Thank you. Okay, so it's unanimous. Thank you. So we've added the 2 items to item 16. Okay, so with that, we will move to the presentation from our CFO on the ARPA distributions, and he has a presentation that he will be sharing on the screen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good evening to you and members of the committee. I do have a presentation here that just give me 1 minute. I'll put it up.
And as he's bringing that up to share, I'd like to thank all of the members of the various departments that have joined tonight's call, and they're available to answer any specific questions related to any ARPA dollars within their department. So again, thank you for joining, and and supporting this effort.
Can you see that?
We can see it. If you could put it in screen show, that might be great. There we go. Perfect.
All right, good.
Yep.
All right. So good evening, everybody. The purpose of this is to just give you all an overview of the ARPA program, to give a little bit on the history of it very briefly, talk about some of the initial proposals that were that came to be, and also to give you an update on those proposals, where they stand now, and also talk about the reallocation of each of the projects that we're proposing to reallocate to other newer projects. And then finally, to talk about the additional $5 million that we received from the state's allocation of ARPA money. That was a surprise to us, and a welcome surprise, and talk about what we're proposing to do with that. Just to cover some basics, I think we all know these dates by heart by now. They come up a lot. December 31st, 2024 is the deadline for committing projects in the ARPA program, that are in the ARPA program. Typically what that means is that there has to be some kind of legal commitment, either contract or what have you, to show that it has actually been committed. The second date is December 31st, 2026, which is when the money has to be spent. So we have 2 years from the time that the funding is committed to spend the money. And if we don't meet those deadlines, then we'll end up forfeiting some of that money. The same deadlines that apply to the original amount of ARPA funding also apply to the new $5 million that we'll talk about. Okay, when you all were first discussing what to do, which projects to undertake, there was a ton of public feedback, from my understanding, and that came in the form of various plans that were reviewed by the city. They took a look at different plans and different proposals, different projects that were in. All the plans are about 30 of them. You see a sampling of them there on this slide. And so the city did some mining of those plans and came up with the priorities for ARPA spending. This is all just for review, so I'm gonna go quickly through these. And originally there were 51 projects, total of $39.3 million. It was covering, as a reflection of those plans. The plans covered a lot of ground, policy-wise and asset-wise. And so the projects that were adopted covered a lot of ground as well. You can see the selections there, anything from IT to fire, police, economic development, DPW. So where do we stand now with the projects? In 2023, there were a couple of changes, which eventually brought the number down to 49 projects. As it stands right now, we have broken those projects up and put them into 3 different categories. There are the ones that have been completed, the ones in progress, and the ones that are to be reallocated. And so the next pages, we'll talk a little bit about each one of those. The completed projects, there are 15 of them. That amounts to 31% of the projects in total. And the value of those projects was $9.1 million. And you can see each one of them. I know the public speaker was asking for a list of all the projects that have been approved. And I think she was looking for a status as well. So this is this presentation, I think will provide some answers to those questions. I'm not going to go through each one of the projects, but suffice it to say we're making good progress. The second category, where most of the projects lie, there are 31 of them, 63% of the projects, and have a value of just over $29 million. These actually are split onto 2 different pages. So these are all in progress now. And then there's the second part of the list. And then finally, we have 3 projects to be reallocated. These are projects that that we are not pursuing, will not meet the deadline of the end of this calendar year, so that we will not be pursuing those. The permitting and licensing software at $400,000. We still plan to do this through the capital plan. We will be talking to a consultant and we'll pursue that later at a later time after getting feedback from the consultant. WMBE grants for $247,500, and the administrator for ARPA, which is a small amount, $7,483, which the purchasing department is taking care of that.
Hello, this is Emily from the American Red Cross. We are currently facing an emergency.
I don't know what that was.
Okay, let's just keep going.
I'll continue on. And so the reallocations, even though that last group was the obvious, which ones will be reallocated, there are some reallocations happening from the other 2 categories as well. More limited amount, but of the completed projects, there was a whole, that's the actual number, $813 that will be reallocated. Thanks to a fire project that was a little bit cheaper. We have, of the ones that are in progress, there's $323,434 to be reallocated, and then $654,983 of the ones that I just went through. So the total is $989,230 that we're proposing to reallocate. And here's the detailed list of those. We have business COVID assistance, again, the WMBE, permitting and licensing software, the ARPA administration, the $813 for fire emergency repair station, resiliency and sustainability effort, and the permit coordinator position. So those are the sources. And so now we'll talk about the new projects. And when I say new, in this case, these are the new projects that we're proposing to reallocate money to. There is funding here for the breathing apparatus, air cylinders for the fire department, in the amount of $280,000. These were quickly going to become part of the capital plan. So this was an opportunity for us to utilize this source instead of using bonding money. The same thing with the next one. There are 2 administrative vehicles for fire, which were on the capital plan for 2026. We're proposing to fund those through the ARPA money and again, take those off the capital plan. The headquarters parking at the police station. This is funding to restructure the parking situation there to increase the capacity for police vehicles there, and also to change the location of the gate that's there. We have a dog park at Oyster Shell Park for $100,000. replacement boat for the harbor master, which was, the boat was very old, was not in very bad condition. And it was at that stage where it needs to be replaced, and we have other sources of funding to cover the remaining cost of the boat. So of the ARPA money, there's $100,000 here that we'll use to come up with the replacement boat. Again, the arts and cultural plan, which was also part of the capital plan and have been approved for 2025. We're proposing that funding come from the reallocation of this money. This is actually split. The total cost of the arts and culture plan is $100,000. We were proposing to do 50,000 out of the reallocation, and then the other half of it would come through the new money, the $5 million, which we'll get to in just a minute. Project manager position extension. So this is for the project manager as a result of, or because the need for the project manager due to $14 million grant that we received for MLK Boulevard. And so what this will do will extend that position for an additional year because there is going to be a significant amount of work for that project, as well as many other projects that are starting to hit us. Okay, so we talked about reallocation. We, again, did receive recently, haven't actually received the funding yet, but we received word that we were approved, that the legislature approved $5 million for the city of Norwalk. We were very fortunate, one of about a dozen towns in the state that actually got some of the state ARPA allocation that was remaining. The deadlines for commitment and expenditure, as I mentioned, they remain the same as the others, the end of the this calendar year for the commitment, and then the end of 2026 to be able to spend the money. So I'm going to go through these and kind of at a very high level, like I did with the reallocations. And then if you have any questions after that, we can talk about them as each of them come up as individual items within the rest of the agenda. The Board of Education has a number of projects in a lot of different areas, and I'll leave it to them to talk about those projects in any detail. So that's 1.8 million. We have 1.4 million for Matthews Park. This is property at 6 Butler Street. This is a good project in that it accounts for the acquisition of the property that the public speaker mentioned, but also there's more to it, in that it will be utilized to create additional parking spaces and really connect that area between it's across the street from the art space and also next to Stepping Stones and the park there as well. And so this will be a good addition to that area to tie it all together. Nonprofit grants through Community and Social Services for $500,000. The community center, this is an additional $1 million. This is related to restrooms and shower facilities for the community center. The upgrade of switches for IT. This is something that's very needed to increase and improve our IT infrastructure, to create a more secure environment, and also to add to the stability of the network, and really to lay the foundation for the future growth and capacity of our network overall. And as I mentioned, the arts and cultural plan for economic and community development. So this is the other half of that $100,000, the cost of the plan. That's it. If anybody has any questions generally about the structure here, about the financing of it, I'm happy to talk about that. But again, I think if you have any questions about the specific projects that we're proposing, I think it'd probably be appropriate to talk about those as they come up on the agenda. And we do have all the department heads or their representatives here who can answer any specific questions that you might have. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Jared. So that is the approach that we'll use, so that as we go over each item, we'll ask representatives from each of the departments on those items to give us a little more detail and address any questions that any members of the committee might have. So with that, if you could stop sharing your screen. We'll start with item 10, which reads as follows: resolution requesting for economic and community development for the Project 6 Butler acquisition in the amount of $1,400,000 from the American Rescue Plan Act, ARPA, Coronavirus State Fiscal Recovery Fund, from account number noted, 6 Butler acquisition. Do we have a motion on this item? Councilmember Heather Dunn, thank you. And now if we can ask a representative from the Economic and Community Development to give us a little more detail on what this project actually is. And it looks like we have Chief of Economic Development, Jessica Vonacek, to provide that.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. My pleasure to be able to present this item to you this evening. We are looking to be able to acquire 6 Butler Street, which is a connecting point between Butler and the Matthews Park. In addition to the parcel, which is just under 0.2 acres, we'll be using that particular parcel to be able to create an access point from Butler into the park. In addition to, right now, we're proposing additional parking spaces, although we need to complete a site plan and design to figure out the details of that. But in addition to that, we also will be with that purchase, there are 30 parking spaces that are included in the Toll Brothers site and development.
Do we have any questions or comments related to this resolution? Okay, seeing none, I'll call for the question. All those in favor show by a sign of aye, either raise a hand or verbal. And I see 1, 2, 3. Mr. Freya, any vote? Okay, we have 3 in favor. So we will approve this item, and we will move it forward to the next Common Council meeting on Tuesday, August 13th. Moving on to item 11, resolution requesting for economic and community development for the Project Arts and Culture Plan in the amount of $500,000 from the American Rescue Plan Act, ARPA, Coronavirus State Fiscal Recovery Fund, account number noted. Do we have a motion on this item? Councilmember Heather Dunn, thank you. And I guess Jess, either yourself or someone from Economic Community Development, any details related to this item?
I can speak to this, Greg, as this is really an Arts and Cultural Commission project. As was mentioned by Jared, this was actually approved in the capital budget request for this fiscal year. This plan is not only required by the state for the Arts and Cultural District designation, but it's also going to outlay the funding requirements or funding suggestions for programs that should be related to any arts and cultural developments within the city. That includes physical works of art, whether it be, mural media or canvases or music or theater, anything like that, but also it should suggest ways to support our cultural institutions within the city. So those are those larger individuals such as Matthews Mansion, such as our larger tourist destinations like the Maritime Aquarium. So the purpose of this is not only to meet that state requirement, but also to have the means to outlay a funding plan and programmatic plans to support the arts and cultural district, but also the businesses and individuals that are within the district.
Great. Thank you for that detail. Do we have any questions or comments related to this? Councilmember Johan Lopez.
Thank you, Chair. So just one quick question. And I know it might be that they have their own budget, but to what extent will there be collaboration between the city and NPS when it comes to like arts and moving some of that stuff forward?
So certainly the plan will probably suggest implementation measures that are both city related and Board of Ed related. The plan development itself will definitely include a stakeholder or steering committee group that will have representation from a variety of individuals, including the Board of Ed, but also artists, art-related businesses, cultural-related businesses, all that fun stuff. So the plan is to have the plan, no pun intended, to be very collaborative with multiple different groups of people, but that implementation measure kind of table that we're hoping for at the end of that will include kind of who's responsible for each of the items or who can help move those items forward, just kind of like our POCD does, just in a smaller, more focused version.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much.
Yep.
Do we have any other questions or comments related to this resolution? Yes, Councilmember Heather Dunn.
Hi, I think this is really great. Thank you so much, Sabrina, for spearheading this. My question was, is this something that you're contracting out? Are you going to be putting together an RFP or something for this?
Yeah, so the
Where
plan
is it going to live?
Yeah, so the plan is to put out an RFP through the purchasing department. I currently have a scope that essentially outlines all of what we're looking for. The purchasing department currently has it to tweak it to match other RFPs kind of in this same wheelhouse that have been done before. Before it gets published, it will go to the Arts and Cultural Commission, obviously for inputs and anything that we may have missed or anything that they were looking for specifically that wasn't in the scope that we created already. And then that will be when it will go out to full RFP. We'll get responses, review those responses with a committee of some sort that focuses on a bunch of different disciplines so that we get the best fit for us. And then they will conduct the actual research and make those suggestions, but there will be a larger committee that's going to be the overseeing body for the plan itself in its development.
Is that something that it's easy to find somebody to do? Is that are there companies that you're going to be able to reach out to that you know ahead of time or no? Okay.
Yes. So we have a list already that we had half of the funding to do this before. So we kind of started that list already, but there are other municipalities that have these plans already created. So essentially we just took other municipalities' plans, see who did them and who did them well, and then added them to our outreach list for when we send out the RFP.
Okay, sounds great. Thanks.
Yep, no problem.
Great. Any other additional questions or comments? Okay, hearing and seeing none, I'll call for the question. All those in favor of this resolution show by a raise of hand or a verbal aye. And I see 3 positives, so we will move forward on this item. Thank you. And again, we'll move this to the full council meeting on Tuesday, August 13th. The next item, item 12, the resolution requesting for recreation and parks for the Project Norwalk Community Recreation Center at 98 South Main Street in the amount of $1 million from the American Rescue Plan Act ARPA Coronavirus Fiscal Recovery Fund, account number noted, 98 South Street Community Center. Do we have a motion on this item? Councilmember Johan Lopez, thank you. And I see that we have representation from Building Management and Recreation and Parks to speak to this item. I guess, Mr. Sowers, you'll lead the discussion?
Yeah, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Okay. I always want to make sure you can hear me. We have, of course, Joanne. She's from, of course, Building Management, and we also have our architectural consultant, Amanda Cleveland, and so they will chime in as I as I get to my the end of my narrative. The purpose of this particular funding is to really supplement the existing funding that has been allocated for the 98 Main Street building, which it will be our new community recreation center. As you know, we have brought this item several times to Rec and Parks committees and the Planning and Zoning Committee just yesterday, and we're here before you today to talk about why we need those ARPA funds. Also, this funding will add to our internal restrooms and showers in the gymnasium area, and they will accommodate our users that use the gym and that part of the facility, spectators, sports leagues, teams. Additionally, it will also add exterior restrooms that can be accessed from Ryan Park when we have programs for our summer camps, and also just use by the general public. There will be exterior bathrooms. So this was necessitated because once we had our initial design done, and initial design, it was beautiful, everybody liked it, but it cost a little bit too much. And the figures were coming up, and maybe Joanne can be more specific, but I think the figures were coming up around $15 million in that area. And our initial budget was only 12.2. And so this $1 million will drive this to about 13.2. It's badly needed. But I'm going to turn this over to Amanda Cleveland and Joanne to explain more specifically why we had to have the additional bathrooms and restrooms. So I will turn it over to Amanda.
Very good. All right. So thank you, everyone, for allowing me to speak tonight. As Robert had mentioned, we had an original design that was presented to the committees early on that was, as he mentioned, very lovely, but was coming in much higher than what was budgeted. So what our team was tasked with is to revisit that design to make sure that programmatically we were still meeting the needs of the city, but not doing it in a way that was over our budget. And essentially what that meant was that we just reduced the square footage. We had originally designed a very large lobby space that connected the new gymnasium to the existing building. So we have found a way to directly connect the gymnasium to the building, thereby alleviating the need of building that large lobby space. In doing that, we were able to get our budget down. But as Robert mentioned, we weren't able to get it down to the $12 million that was originally allocated. So by having the additional $1 million, that will allow us to not only have the high school size gymnasium, but would allow us to add in those toilet facilities that are required by adding that gym. So the existing building itself meets the requirements by code of the toilet facilities, but by adding that gym, we are under our toilet count. So we do need to add those in, not only for the public, but for family use. And then as Robert had mentioned, because we are adjacent to the park and there's going to be summer programs running through this building, it really is a benefit to not only the people using the building, but the town itself, to be able to have access outside rather than having to access the building for security purposes. So I think we've gotten ourselves to a point now where not only are we meeting the needs of the program, but we are now going to be able to fall within budget with the additional $1 million. Yeah, Joanne, I don't know if you have anything else.
Oh, well said. Well said. This project is very unique, and we have a significant amount of funding sources from federal to state to city. And so this additional money will help us to not have to cut more of the program, and to be able to still have those features that Robert mentioned in the design. Is there any questions?
I did have one question. The external restrooms, how will those be managed and monitored? Will they be open at certain times or only during programming? How will that operate?
They will be operated much like our restrooms in our parks. Parks staff will manage those restrooms, and yeah, they will have certain hours when they're locked, just like our other restrooms in our other parks. So they'll be managed by our park staff.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any other? Oh, well, one follow-up question. Amanda, you mentioned that, there were some reductions made in order to stay within budget. And now this additional $1 million will help bring back some of the reductions that were initially made. Are these this addition, is this the priority items that are being added back in, or are there other items that were taken out that might be of higher priority? Or, I'm looking for an understanding of kind of the items that were taken out now that this additional $1 million is available.
Correct. So
what the best? Yeah. Go ahead.
What was taken out was quite literally a very large lobby that connected the existing building to the new. That, honestly, from a building perspective, not only for material costs, foundations, site excavation, was what was pushing us over the budget. So the bathrooms as well, because we were looking to add the exterior bathrooms, which were not part of the original scope, but really are programmatically necessary in order for the building to function properly. So by removing that large atrium or lobby space, that cut down a significant amount of the cost, but it wasn't enough for us to hit that $12 million budget. And we really wanted to add in back those exterior restrooms. So by cutting that piece out with the additional $1 million, we are currently falling within budget. So the 12.5, I believe it was, Joanne, is that correct?
12.274. Yes.
Okay. Plus the $1 million, we're tracking right where we need to be right now with the additional funding to be able to include those restrooms that will give park access.
So essentially, we reduce square footage as a whole.
Correct. But in terms of all the other program spaces that were originally provided, so multi-purpose rooms, the YMCA space, teaching kitchens, culinary kitchens, all of those program spaces are still included. We just eliminated the large atrium lobby space.
Great. Thank you for that update. Are there any other questions or comments related to this resolution? Okay, seeing none, I'll call for the question. All those in favor show by a raise of hand or verbal aye. And I see 3 in the affirmative, so we will move on. This item will move forward to the next Common Council meeting on Tuesday, August 13th. Moving on, item 13, which is resolution requesting for information technology for Project Norwalk Network Switch Upgrade Initiative in the amount of $250,000 from the American Rescue Plan Act, ARPA, Coronavirus State Fiscal Recovery Fund, account number noted. Do we have a motion on this item? Councilmember Johan Lopez, thank you. And we have our Director of IT, Joyce Liu, to provide some additional background.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. So this project is to upgrade the City of Norwalk's outdated network switches to enhance the efficiency, security, and the reliability of the city's digital infrastructure. This network switch upgrade project actually it is part of the IT department's capital request. item for this fiscal year. But due to the budget cut, IT department didn't receive the full funding originally requested. So with this additional 250,000 ARPA grant, we will be able to complete our infrastructure upgrade project. So just for let the committee know, all funds will be used for the network hardware and license only. The IT department network team will handle all network equipment installation. So there will be no third party involving in this installation. I'm here for any question you might have.
Great, thank you, Joyce. Do we have any questions related to this resolution? I guess I don't see any questions or comments. These additional $250,000 will help upgrade our switching infrastructure, which is a great thing to do. We always want to make sure our IT systems are at its operating at full capacity. So this is a great addition.
Thank you so much.
Okay, if there's no questions or comments, I'll call for the question. All those in favor show by a sign of aye or raise of hand. And I see 3 in the affirmative, so we will move forward on this item. And again, we'll bring it forward to the next Common Council meeting for full council approval next Tuesday. Thank you.
Have a great evening.
Moving on, item 14, resolution reads as follows. Request for community services for project nonprofit community recovery in the amount of $500,000 from the American Rescue Plan Act, ARPA, Coronavirus State Fiscal Recovery Fund, the account number as noted. Do we have a motion on this item? Councilmember Johan Lopez, thank you. And we have Chief of Community Services, Lamont Daniels, to provide additional commentary on this item.
Sure. Thank you. Good evening, Chair Burnett. Good evening, Common Council members. So this would be considered our round 3 for those who are new to the council. The community services was allocated $2 million out of that initial $39.3 million that Chair Burnett indicated, and we have distributed that funding and on the ground to support our most vulnerable residents. So this request is to allocate an additional $500,000. I will say the need is still there. While some people have bounced back, we know our most vulnerable and our nonprofits who are the safety net for our city, working with our most vulnerable population, still need the support. And so we will do as we have done with our past practices to create an RFP process that we can trigger immediately. We will use our same process to formulate the RFP, and as the original intent of ARPA dollars, to get it out to the residents who are impacted the most. And so we're really excited to come before you. I seek your approval to get this money to our nonprofits and let them do the work that they do, uplifting our residents. Thank you. And if you have any clarifying questions, I'm here to respond. Thank you so much. Thank you, Chief Daniels.
One question, in this upcoming distribution of $500,000, will there be any specific focus area or objective as it relates to the nonprofits that these dollars will go to?
That's great. That's a great question. So we're actually using and I don't have the code with me, but we're actually completing our 3rd round now with the last allocation. And so what we've learned is that we decided not to specify, for example, our original round. If you remember, Chair Burnett, we focus on mental health, eviction. We've done that, and not to suggest that the need isn't there, but what we have decided, and because we do talk with, I facilitate a bi-weekly nonprofit call that most of you know, 60, 70 participants. We decided to design this program as if the organizations can demonstrate that they're still impacted by COVID, they can show evidence that the demand is still there. They're at capacity or I can't think of the words, I don't have it in front of me. I think the direct language is the increase in demand of service because of COVID. That money will be used specifically for any organization that can demonstrate that, hey, we're still impacted by COVID. We're still at what is called pandemic rate services, and we can use the funding. We're actually doing that round now, so we will reformat that particular format and get it out to the communities. And I also want to note, which I'm always very proud of, that we have a strong partnership with Fairfield County's Community Foundation, which is the community foundation for our county. They are our technical assistants, they are reviewers, and they help us look at the application to make sure it's fair and equitable and makes sense so nonprofits can complete the application.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Johan Lopez.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you. My quick question. So I'm assuming you are proceeding with like a strict criteria for trying to determine whether or not some of these organizations still are facing issues with COVID. So are you essentially, does it allow you to essentially separate between something that might not be so still COVID related versus something that is?
Yeah, so our reviewers are trained, and we're still using the federal criteria. So I didn't go into the details. There's specific things. We also request your financial statements. You have to be a 501c3. We want your 990. If you're saying that you've increased, you have to show reports to say pre-COVID, I'm in COVID, post-COVID, what's that high? So there's a lot of documentation that organizations have to demonstrate in order for them to receive the money, both from our own internal process, but also the federal government. We have to make sure that this money is using directly for organizations impacted by COVID. But great question.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Lamont.
My pleasure.
Are there any additional questions or comments related to this resolution? Okay, hearing and seeing none, I'll call for the question. All those in favor show by a sign of aye. And I see 3 in the affirmative, so the resolution passed, and we'll move this item forward to the next Common Council meeting on Tuesday, August 13th.
Thank you very much. Have a great evening.
Thank you. Moving on to the final item related to the $5 million additional ARPA funding. Resolution 15, which reads as follows: resolution requesting for the Norwalk Public Schools for Project Schools and Other Educational Facilities in the amount of $1,800,000 from the American Rescue Plan Act, ARPA, Coronavirus State Fiscal Recovery Fund, account number noted. Do we have a motion on this item? Councilmember Johan Lopez, thank you. And I see we have our Board of Education CFO, Linda Asmani, to provide additional detail on this item.
Thank you and good evening for having us here today. We have been having conversations with the mayor and members of the Finance and Claims in addressing the budget needs. And so this funding came at a timely time. We did sit down with members of the finance team, one, to review the criteria in which these funds could be used for. And after reviewing that, we have 7 project areas that the 1.8 million covers. The first area is facilities maintenance, specifically life safety and mailroom services. That is about $717,000. The second area that we will apply this to is our curriculum software and licensing. As you know, most of our curriculum now is no longer paper. We do a lot of online curriculum, and so there's software that goes with that. And so we're applying $134,000 towards software. We have had conversations regarding special education and special education needs and services. So we are applying these funds towards our individualized education plan for some of our students. These are mandated by the state after students are determined to have needs that cannot be filled by the school district. We are required to outsource these services. And so that is part of what we will use this funding for, including some internal training for the programs that we do have internally that provide supports for special education needs. We have information technology and licensing. As you know, this was really beneficial for us during COVID. Norwalk Public Schools became a one-to-one district. So all of our 11,000 students have a technology device. In addition to the devices that are in the students' hands, our teachers, each of our teachers is also equipped with electronic devices, in addition to the smart boards and all of those equipments that are in the classrooms. So we're going to use 360,000 of that towards meeting those licensing requirements and securing some of those needs. We do have police coverage expenses. We have an agreement with the city where we do have, if you go by our high schools, you'll see a police vehicle parked at the schools for additional safety. But we do have additional services when we have evening events, weekend events in our schools where we require to have police coverage. Some of those services we in fact pay for. And so we are allocating some of these dollars towards paying for some of those services. That's about 103,000. You have heard from us talk about mental health challenges within our schools, and we have community partners similar to what Chief Lamont Daniels was talking about. We have a Kids in Crisis program that provides high school social work services to our high school students at both high schools. So we're allocating 120,000 towards our Kids in Crisis. And then the final one has to do with increased transportation. We have a contract with Durham and Elite Transportation Services. As you know, with the construction of the new high school, part of the arrangements that we've made is because we won't have access to some of those athletic facilities. So we will be transporting students from those schools to other facilities. And so we will have increased transportation services this year. And so about 200,000 will cover those services. And so that adds up to the $1.8 million of ARPA funds that we intend to use. And I would be happy to answer any questions at this time. But again, thank you for the opportunity to present this information to you.
Yes, I see Councilmember Heather Dunn. You're currently muted, Heather.
Sorry. I know that AT&T provided the teachers with the laptops. Can you just tell us more about the licensing that you're looking for? As it was my understanding that all that was provided by like AT&T. So what are we looking at?
No, so what AT&T did during COVID, they provided hotspots, and some of those hotspots were for families that didn't have internet connection. But we do have a lot of proprietary software that we use that we do pay licensing for, in addition to like your typical Microsoft. But we have curriculum software that we use. We have learning apps that we use at different levels at the high schools, at the middle schools, at the elementary schools. Teachers also have educational apps that they use that we do pay licensing for use of those softwares.
And that was in the budget otherwise, yes?
Say that again now?
So, and that was in the budget otherwise? We would be paying for those, or those additional licenses that we wouldn't have?
Yes, so these were part of the original BOE request that was put forward. It included these. And then obviously with some of the adjustments we had to make, these were in jeopardy of not being able to do this, but we were able to allocate these particular expenses because they met the ARPA criteria.
Okay, and my second question, on Lions Crisis, they're fabulous, but that's an outside agency. You know, Norwalk Board of Ed doesn't run Kids in Crisis, does it?
I'm sorry, you broke up a little bit. I didn't.
Nonprofit. Sorry.
Yeah.
Kids in Crisis, right?
Yes.
Sorry. They do great work. But they're an outside company. They're not a Norwalk Board of Ed company, right?
Correct. They are a partner. We do have a number of services that we have partners come in. Kids in Crisis provide social services. Right. So that's another one. And so what that allows us to do is when we outsource that, rather than having on staff employees that provide those services with benefits and payroll and all of those expenses, they are able to give us those enhanced services in lieu of us hiring Board of Ed employees to provide those services. Yes. So this is a contract that we have with Kinston University.
Okay, so that's toward their contract. Okay, that's what I understand. And the
yes, this is a contract.
As you're including a lot of the IEP special ed stuff, as I am a special education teacher at North High School, I'm gonna have to abstain. Which I know Greg puts us at a weird spot as far as having a quorum or whatever.
No, it won't be a problem because a quorum has been established, and so we can still have the vote. So I'm assuming you're
I'm going to abstain from this.
Abstain from this vote, or are you going to recluse yourself, or just going to abstain from the vote? Okay, no problem.
I think that I would directly benefit as a special ed teacher from any training and stuff like that, I have to not vote on it.
Right. And we can talk offline as it relates to when we bring it forward to the full council.
Okay, sounds good. So I'll abstain now, I guess, and then.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. I get the question that I have is related to, these dollars for 1.8 million are grant dollars. They're ARPA funding, one-time funding. So what happens to these categories once the funding, one-time funding has been exhausted?
Well, what would happen is through the course of the budget process next year, we will go through the typical process. We will prioritize. Obviously, there are things on here that will have to be bumped into local funding because they can't go away, and something else would have to give in order to allow some of these things to continue.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments related to this resolution? Okay, hearing and seeing none, I'll call for the question. All those in favor show by a sign of aye or raise of hand. And we have myself and Councilmember Lopez. And as indicated, Councilmember Heather Dunn is abstaining. So we will move this item forward to the full council next Tuesday, August 13th, for final council approval.
Thank you.
Thank you. This moves us on. I know the meeting's is long, but this is all good stuff. We just allocated $5 million worth of outstanding projects. Moving on to item 16. And in this item, as our CFO covered, this is reallocating existing ARPA dollars and assigning them to new projects. So I will read the projects as follows, including the amendment that we added. So item 16 reads, approve ARPA transfer requests. We have the first, the projects that will, where the ARPA dollars will be coming from. First, the business COVID assistance, $10,000. The WMBE grants to small businesses, $247,500. Permitting and licensing software, $400,000. Administrator for ARPA, $7,483. Fire Emergency Repair Station 1, $813. Mayor Initiative ARPA, $168,443. And the permit coordinator for $155,000. That amount totals $989,230. And within these transfers, the reallocation to first the SCBA air cylinders for $280,000. The purchase of administrative vehicles for $154,230. Police headquarters parking for $150,000. The dog park at Oyster Shell Park for $100,000. The replacement boat with the harbor master for $100,000, and art and cultural plan for $50,000. And then finally, the project manager position for $155,000, totaling $989,230. Do we have a motion on the reallocation of these ARPA funds? Councilmember Johan Lopez, thank you. Do we have any questions related to these transfers? I did have two questions related to the dollars being where they're coming from, and I know maybe our CFO or Jessica might have some the grants to the small businesses. We initially allocated the $247,500, and now we're taking that totally out. What actually happened there?
Sure. So two things to note. One, we wanted to make sure that we were allocating a strong portion of the funding to women and minority-owned businesses. And we put the money and the funding in that pot to be able to ensure that the fund would go to those businesses. And what we realized is that what we had said was that we would have a goal of 33% of all of our funding will go to women and minority-owned businesses. But in reality, well over 70% of the funding went to businesses minority or women-owned. At the same time, we worked with the legal department to be able to finalize the proposal to be able to provide grants to go to the small businesses. What we realized was in the fine print, based on the legal requirements for ARPA, was that if we did loan the money and the money was paid back to the city, that we wouldn't be able to use it as a revolving fund, which originally we wanted to do. As we receive the funding back from the loan program, we would actually have to give that money back to the federal government, and we wouldn't be able to keep it within the city. And that helped to make the decision to reallocate that.
So thank you for that narrative. So is there any other plan or program that is in related to providing assistance to women and minority business organizations?
With the programs that we've already administered, we've actually given well over $2 million to the businesses that are women and minority owned. And so we did 2 or 3 rounds of the COVID business assistance in addition to some of the other programs that we offered. And so given the strong use of those funds to women and minority owned businesses, as well as the development of the Business Development Center, and being able to support hundreds of businesses going through process through COVID, we decided to redirect the fund. The answer to your question is no, not at this particular time, not the ARPA funding.
You were breaking up at the end there. I didn't quite make out that last statement.
I just wanted to be clear that the direct response to your question, no, not at this time.
Okay. And an additional question I had, we initially had allocated $400,000 for permitting and licensing software, and I see that we're taking that total amount out and reallocating that. Is there any narrative behind or rationale behind why the $400,000 was not utilized?
Yep. So what the plan was there was to be able to hire a permit coordinator, and the permit coordinator was going to be our project manager on site in order to be able to lead the permitting and licensing software. We did post that job and we interviewed a number of times and we did not find a successful candidate. So we collectively got together with all of the departments that would be using the permitting and licensing online software. And we determined that the best way to move forward was to actually work with a company to be able to come in and do all the mapping of our processes and all of our standards and be able to offer us best practices. And that particular project will take 12 months. And given that that project will take 12 months as a preparation project to be able to do procurement for the online permitting and software, we decided to reallocate that $400,000 so that we would not lose the ARPA money given the timelines that are associated to it. I should say too that when we presented the online permitting contract with the consultant, we did highlight that there is a budget for about 1.7 million that's required for that particular project. And we wanted to disclose that to make sure everyone understood the scope of the full project.
Great, thank you for that. Do we have any additional questions or comments related to these transfers or reallocations? Okay, hearing and seeing none, I'll call for the question. All those in favor of the ARPA transfers show by a raise of hand or verbal. And I see Heather, are you still here? Can you still hear us? We might have lost her connection. So we have two in affirmative, myself and Councilman Lopez. So we will move these transfers and that reallocations forward to the full council next Tuesday, August 13th for final approval. Great, thank you. Thank you for all the department representatives who are on the call. And thank you for your information. It was very helpful. Moving on to item 17, the final item on the agenda, which reads as follows. Authorize the Mayor, Harry W. Rilling, to execute the letter of commitment of budget stabilization program between the City of Norwalk, the Board of Education, and Connecticut Interlocal Risk Management Agency, CIRMA. Account numbers noted. The city LAP self-insured losses, and account number noted, Board of Ed self-insured losses. Do we have a motion on this item? Councilmember Johan Lopez, thank you. And we have our CFO, Jared Smith, and our risk manager, Craig Smith, to provide detail on this particular authorization.
All right, thanks, Mr. Chair, and I'll kick it off and give an overview, and then if I miss anything or you have other detailed questions, as you mentioned, Craig is on, so he can pick up those. So basically, what we're asking for is the authorization to enter into an agreement with CIRMA, who is our LAP insurance provider. And our policy does continue, is in force. What this is to lock in for 3 years. And what we get out of that is a reduced rate or a cap on a rate from CIRMA. And the cap would be at 4%. So the most that they could increase our LAP premium would be 4% in any given year. However, in the first year, that increase would be 0%. We negotiated with them to get that rate down a little bit to the 4%. They were reasonable about it and went along with it, and so we're happy to do that. And I think in the long run, it's a good rate to know that the biggest increase we're going to have is 4%. However, it could be lower, so it doesn't prevent them from or prevent us from getting a lower rate if that's what they determine, but it provides that cap. If anybody has any questions, we're happy to take them. And thanks to Craig and to our insurance broker, USI, for helping out on this. And happy to answer questions that you might have.
I did have one question. I know you mentioned the 4% cap, but is there a dollar amount associated with that, or is the dollar amount to be determined?
The dollar amount of the premiums that we pay?
That is correct. That when you indicated by extending this letter of commitment, we lock in at a cap of 4%. Is there a dollar amount associated with that 4%, or is that calculated at a later date?
Well, so in this case, it would be calculated at a later date because for the first year, it's going to be 0%. So the first year is going to be flat. And so in the following year, that's when that calculation would happen. So I don't know, okay. You know, we don't know if it's going to be at 4% or something less than that.
And Greg, this is Craig. Yeah, right. It is, as Jared mentioned, it's a percentage only. We don't have a dollar amount cap.
Okay, great. Just wanted to get clarity on that item. Do we have any other comments or questions related to this authorization? Okay, hearing, seeing none, I'll call for the question. All those in favor, show by a sign of aye or raise a hand, and we have 2 in the affirmative. So we will move this item forward to the full Common Council next Tuesday on August 13th for final approval. Thank you. That concludes our long agenda for this evening, and a motion to adjourn. And that is an affirmative. So we stand adjourned at 8:43,
Chair.
I'm sorry, 8:43 p.m. Thank you. Have a great rest of the evening.
Thank you.
And thank you for your participation and input.
Great. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.